Hello, everyone. Hi, learners, and welcome to another lecture series for employee training and development. So, for this lecture, we'll be talking about program design. So, we'll be talking about how to create your own program design, which is aligned to different tasks that you have undergone in the past week. So, that was about strategic trading, conducting your needs assessment, and doing the different and utilizing different learning theories that would best suit your trainees and your training. Last week, we talked about the different learning theories that can be utilized in your training. So I hope that this coming weeks, you'll be able now to choose what will be the best learning theories that would fit your trainees and your training. Right. So right now, we'll move forward. We'll make our training let's make it into a reality. So we'll be right now at the end of this lecture series, we'll be aware on what are the things that you need to do in order for you to create your own program for your own training. Right? So let's now start our lecture series. So again, welcome to chapter 5 of employee training development. So this will be program design. Same with other lecture series, we'll be having several objectives. So number one, learners will be able to choose and prepare a training site based on how trainees will be involved and interact with the content and each other in the course. Since we are in the middle of the pandemic, this will not be applicable right now because most of the training that they'll be doing will be virtual training. Perhaps you can do this. You'll be working on your own, when you'll be working and practicing as trainers when physical training will be available. Second objective is to prepare for instruction using a curriculum, roadmap, lesson plan, design document, and concept map. Third objective is to explain how trainees' age, generational differences, and personality might influence how programs are designed. Next, you'll be preparing a request for proposal and a list of questions to evaluate training consultants and suppliers. Next, explain the program design elements that should be included to ensure near and far transfer of training. Next is we have develop a self-management module for a training program. And next, design application assignments and action plans to enhance learning and transfer of training. Second to the last learning objective is make recommendations about what managers can do before, during, and after training to facilitate learning and transfer. And lastly, identify different ways to manage knowledge and the conditions necessary for employees to share knowledge. Right, so those were the learning objectives. So it's quite a lot actually for a learning objective, but no worries, we will try to decipher each part and try to explain it in the most simplest form so that it will be digestible on your end. What is program design basically? Basically, program design is how trainers rather, or organize and coordinate a training program. So that's how systematically um, a trainer designs a training program. So it's a systematic and it is composed of a very complex steps. But we'll be trying to learning each of the parts as we go along the discussion, right? So here is figure 5.1, and it shows here that designing your own training itself has its own phases, and it's composed of three phases. First one is the pre-training. So in this part, you'll be knowing how ready, how motivated, and how prepared are your trainees with when you'll be conducting the training. And also you'll be checking the site or the space where you'll be doing the training. Is it feasible to do the training? Is it um, logistically okay to do or deliver the materials that you'll be using in your training, or will it be challenging? And right now, since it's most of the training are conducted online or virtual training, so what will be the changes or the preparation that trainers should do, right? So you should ensure here work environment, the climate, the support of the management, how the organization itself supports the training. So after you um, perhaps assess those factors, then you will proceed. If you believe that they are ready, the trainees are ready, then you will proceed now with phase two, which is the learning event. So this is really the actual event, actual session wherein you will be conducting the training. You will be delivering the contents of the modules of the program. So of course, you will before here you will prepare the instruction, the classes, the programs, the modules, etc., logistics, and a lot more. When the training is over, of course, there is phase three, and that is the post training. So this is how we try to incorporate the learning. There is a trans how do we incorporate the learned information from the current training and be applied in the work. So this is a post training session. So we encourage our trainees on how to apply what they have learned for in the training itself, because it will be useless if they will not be using or utilizing the information or experiences that they have learned in the training. Right. So those are the three program design process. Of course, when we conduct training, when everything was normal, when there's no pandemic, when we can do classes face to face, we as trainers should make sure that our training site is okay. I mean, okay. There is no certain gold standard or um, to what is a perfect or what is the appropriate training room. It depends on the type of training that you'll be delivering. But if in case you'll be doing a training wherein you'll be doing um, lecture type of training and group discussions, as much as possible, it should be a room that is neutral as much as possible, that would entice neutrality, because we don't want to impose something from our trainees. So yeah, and then all of the make sure that the temperature is not too cold and not too warm, because it will really influence the motivation of the participants or the trainees. And of course, if you be dealing with a lot of participants, make sure that you have good sound system so that your voice will be heard. And of course, it will be delivered thoroughly to your trainees. Right? And of course, there's a lot of factors here. So we have comfortable and accessible, quite private, free from interruptions, efficient space, um, in adequate room space for working and for lecture type. Of course, good visibility so that they can see the other trainees and of course the trainers as well. So when it will be possible to visit a physical room soon when everything will be okay. So these are the factors that you're going to check if the room is okay for training. So you'll you'll take note of the noise and colors, room structure and lighting. Lighting is very important because um, dim lights tend to make the participants sleepy. It might induce sleep. Too much bright lighting might make them some are sensitive to light, so it might have some implications as well. So as much as possible, there's a balance between the lighting. Of course, wall and floor covering, meeting room chairs, glare, the ceiling, electrical outlets, acoustics. Make sure that the sound of the room will not induce echoes, because it will be annoying for the participants and the trainees. And of course, the technology that you'll be using. For example, multimedia technology, computers, all of the projectors, audio setup, and everything, right? So this is examples of seating arrangement in Figure 5.2. So you can see there are several seating arrangements. We have the fan type seating, classroom type seating, horseshoe arrangement, and the conference type seating. So there's a lot, but since we are now in a virtual training, this might not be applicable as of this time. So right now we'll be talking about making training site and instruction conducive to learning. We are done checking the physical aspect of training, right? We're checking the logistics, like the room, the sounds, etc., etc. So right now, I will try to dig deeper on the instructions, on the delivery of the information of the curriculum of the program, so that learning will be possible. The first is you need to create learning setting. So this is giving really of expectations and giving prior um, introduction to the trainees, what will be the training all about. That's why the phase one of the training is very important because that's also the time wherein you'll be giving a small background, a small introduction of the expected training that the trainees will be experiencing. So that's when you ask surveys, for example, or questionnaires, or if it's just a small group training. So you'll be asking what will be their expectation, what's their opinion about the upcoming training. So that's really important because it would set the atmosphere, it would set the 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 expectations of the participants, and then, of course the trainers can somewhat align the expectation of the participants to the contents of the training itself, right? So aside from that, you need to prepare the materials. You should know your audience or your trainees. Who are they? Are they executives? Are they rank and file employees, or are they middle managers? So you should know your trainees because different type or rank in the organization have their own specific ways of working or dealing with. And of course, it depends on the organizational culture as well. Of course, the pre-training or the brief orientation, and of course, the provide overview of the course of the whole training. Next is you need also to help trainees retain and recall training content by a very concrete example here is giving them assignments and giving them handouts, giving them takeaways after the training. Because of course, from the learning theories that we've shared last time, so the more we share and practice certain information, the more it retains in ourselves, in our mind. So yeah, assignments would be a best option, one of the best options. Next is classroom management. This is how you try to foresee if training is already ongoing and different types of people will be attending your training. So how are you going to manage if this would happen if trainee number one would not be that participative, or trainee number two is the one who overtakes you as a trainer. So how are you going to manage that? So technically, you're a teacher here, you're a facilitator here if you're going to conduct a training to different types of people. Yeah, and that would lead us to dealing with disruptive trainees. How are you going to do that? How are you going to manage these type of trainees who are somewhat distractive and in a way that it would be still professional enough? Next is group dynamics. With you need as a trainers, you should be able to manage group dynamics, like different interactions would lead to a specific outcome of behavior. So if that behavior is not expected, how are you going to manage that? So for example, so as trainees know each other in the couple of days, so there will be interactions, there will be dynamics, there will be, for example, a more dominant trainees, a more reluctant trainee. So from that those behavior were somewhat influenced by their everyday experiences with training. So, as the facilitator, as the trainer, how are you going to deal with that if it will lead to some challenges or problems? So this is table 5.2. So this is how we match training rooms with learning requirements. So it really depends on what learning are the trainers wanted to achieve from their trainees. So if you wanted a very high there is a high collaboration and low self-esteem, then you need to have a I'm sorry, that was high collaboration and low self-direction. So you need to have classroom with breakout rooms because with breakout rooms, you can do collaboration. And of course, it's low self-direction because you'll be dealing with a team, right? So if you have high collaboration and high self-direction, then you can go to breakout rooms, project rooms, conference rooms. So trainees have the capacity to discuss with themselves the topic, their insights, their discussions, right? And same with other requirements, low collaboration, so direction we have there, the suggested training room. So as trainers, this will be your guide in conducting or choosing what training rooms that you'll be using, right? Okay, so here is table 5.3. So this is examples of how to get trainees involved. So as it's a very challenging um, job or task of a trainers is really to engage how to let their participants be engaged in the training process because there will be instances, especially right now where training is conducted virtually, so there is a tendency that the participants will just slack off and they will not participate, right? So these are the suggestions on how to let them be more engaged in training. Number one, prepare and distribute content-related, open-ended questions to be discussed in breakout groups. So this is applicable when you have breakout rooms or breakout groups. Second is use creative activities or games that relate to the training content. And this is very important because the more we build activities, the more we let our participants um, be active or be involved in the training or be involved in the lecture, for example, the more that they will be more engaged and the more that they will be more participative in the class. So if this is the problem if the trainers are the one who's just speaking all the time. And of course, the trainees will just sleep and they will not listen. So the more that we involve them with the training, then that's the time perhaps that they can also um, be engaged and they more participative. They are more participative. Next is use assessment measure that allow the trainees to learn about themselves and each other, right? So survey questionnaires is very important. So it's how um, we evaluate certain things. So you can during the training, perhaps you can use Likert scale questionnaire, like how do you know each other, or it's a form of getting to know yourself. Then you can give some survey questionnaires, and they can score themselves and their trainees, and perhaps they can be more, of course, engaged, and they are more aware to whom are they working with, to whom are they training with. Of course, next is incorporate role playing. So this is really how we give um the task to our trainees. So when they are more engaged and participate engage when they are given a task in the training itself, then they are don't have any choice but they need to participate. So that's the idea there to let them do the and learn more because this is adult training, this is adult learning. So we assume that autonomy is the center of the training. So they don't want to be controlled. So they want to be on their own. So we give them the authority, we give them the autonomy or the independence to learn on their own pace. Right. Next is conclude a training session by asking trainees. So of course, it's really asking like how do you find the training or it's sort of evaluation after the training. So that's also, we could know how the training went well and what were the feedbacks coming from the trainings. And after checking the physical and the instruction or the content of the training, we will now be talking about curriculum, course, and lesson design. So this is how we create our program, right? So we have here curriculum, course or program shows and includes design document, detailed lesson plan, and lesson plan overview. So this is very educational in terms of educational management topic because this is really how teachers create their own programs, curriculums, courses, course descriptions, learning objectives, etc. So a curriculum is an organized program of study designed to meet a complex learning objective. It includes several courses. Learning objectives, broader and less measurable than course or lesson. So, to make it digestible, curriculum is synonymous here in the context here in Cebu or in the Philippines is the prospectus, right? So when you enrolled in BS Psychology program, you go to the admissions office or to the dean's office, and then you ask for a copy of the prospectus, right? Prospectus here is also the curriculum because the curriculum for BS Psychology in USPF is a 4-year course. So it composed of a lot of subjects. We have major subjects, we have general education subjects, and that includes the minor subjects, but that really includes the general education subjects. Right? So for the major subjects, there's a lot. So we have training and development, we have we have the core courses, we have the theories of personality, psychological assessment, abnormal psychology. We have industrial organizational psychology. So those are the contents of the curriculum. And here, the course or the program is not referring here to the course, right? The course. What's your course? My course is BS Psychology, right? But in the context of training and development, the course or the program here is referring to the specific subject. So, in the context of the BS psychology curriculum, so one course there, for example, is training and development or theories of personality. So, that's an example of course that is found under the curriculum of the BS psychology program in USPF. Right? Shows here are all of the courses in a curriculum. So paths that learners can take through the sequences in which courses have been completed. So this is referring to um, the courses that has prerequisites or levels before you can take that specific courses. For example, in the context of training and development, I think you cannot take this if you have not taken human behavior and organization and other related IO psychology subjects. So, for example, in another example is when you take psychological assessment in USPF, you cannot take the subject if you are not enrolled or if you haven't taken psychological statistics because psychological statistics is the language of psychological assessment. So it will be challenging and difficult for the students to take if they have not learned the language of psychological assessment, right? Includes here are the brief statement of the course purpose. So it's like also the prerequisite skills needed for the course and learning objective or competency. So this is like an introduction to the course or to the program itself. So we have a design document. So this is the outline scope of the project, delivery methods and objectives. So how are we going, for example, in the context of training and development, how is it going to be delivered? Is it going to be lecture type? Is it going to be outcomes based? So meaning it based from the um, measurable and tangible learning of the students. All right. And lastly, we have the detailed lesson plan. So this is the contents and the sequence of training activities into a trainer's guide. So this is now the um it's like the user's manual for trainers. So for teachers, I'm sure you're familiar with lesson plans. So most of our high school and elementary teachers are writing their lesson plans before the start of the class. So they write it. So in this context here, this is the manual, user manuals for trainers. Of course, and of course, the lesson plan overview is the overview of the lesson plan. Right? So here is table 5.4, and it shows here the example of curriculum roadmap of a security management training curriculum. So we start with introduction to information security, and we go to training program for certification exam, which will lead to IT project management and security leadership and law investigation. This is the curriculum of the security management training. Here, table 5.4 shows a design document template. So here we have the scope of the project, we have the delivery, and we have the objectives. Table 5.5 is an example of a design document. So we have here the purpose, the goals, the training time. So this is really the document that will guide the trainers in doing the training program. So we have here like a summary. So this will give the trainers a summary on what to do, and it's like also a blueprint. And this is now the sampled lesson plan. So this is now the more detailed lesson plan. So course title, length, lesson length, learning objectives, which is very important. The prerequisites, instructor, room assignment, comment, etc., and etc. So this is the continuation of Table 5.6 sample of a detailed lesson plan. So it's very here. Here on the lesson plan, it's very detailed and very construct. I mean, everything is very detailed. Like even the lunch, like it's really the schedule of the training itself. So you'll be doing this also in your own training program. Table 5.7 here shows the features of an effective lesson plan. So these are the characteristics of an effective lesson plan. You should have learning objectives and outcomes. That is really that is really important because that's the beginning of a training. It's like what are the expected outcome from the trainees. Next is the target audience. Of course, who will be the participants or the trainees of the training. Prerequisites, what are the needed training or skills before this trainees will join this um, current training. Time, how long the training will take time. Lesson outline or um, what will be the flow of the training itself. The activity itself, the support materials, the physical environment, the preparation, lesson topic, evaluation, and lastly, how is the training will be transferred and be utilized by the trainees in their work. Right, so this is a sample lesson overview. So we have here on the left part, we have the time, and on the right part, the questions, the guide questions, and the topics that will be discussed on the particular time. Right. So right now we'll go now on choosing vendor consultants for training services. So this is when tr company or organization will try to export or not export, but when they ask external uh, trainers or training companies who'll be doing or conducting training for their own organization. So, in order for it to be possible, there must be a request for proposal. So, what is a request for proposal? It is used for potential vendors and consultants. So, it it includes the type of service the company is seeking, the number of references needed, number of so this is like a report that will be sent um, for the vendors or the consultants who'll be doing the training. So it will give an overview to what is the needs of the company, like how many people are working in the company, what type of training will be conducted by the trainers to the company, and all of the background information pertaining to the company, right? So these are the questions that you will be asking if you'll be talking to your vendors and consultants if you're planning to um, outsource your training. Of course, very important. This is also tackled during the last chapter on how are we going to make sure that there was a transfer of training, that how can we ensure that after the training, trainees will be able to use the skills and the knowledge that he or she have learned in the training, right? Course number one, you need to encourage trainees to self-manage the use of learned skills. You need to empower your trainees because one way of really believing in them, giving them the trust that they can do whatever they can do pertaining to training, then yeah, self-efficacy is really the key here. Next is provide trainees with opportunities to use training content. So this is also very crucial because the communication between the trainers and the organization itself is would play a role also in retaining the information because no matter how um, comprehensive the training is, no matter how good the training is, and as long as and if the organization is not supporting the training, so for example, when trainees go back to their work and then it's still the same, like there's no avenue wherein trainees can use the learned experiences from the training, then training will be gone to waste because time will come when trainees will forget the skills and the information they have learned in the training, right? Of course, we have also near transfer. So that's where we apply learning capabilities exactly in a work situation. Training task involves responding to predictable situations. So this is somewhat like a simulation. So when trainees go back to work after training, as much as possible, it will be helpful if there will be tasks which is similar to training tasks and activities so that a retainment of the information would still be present and be more visible, right? So in programs with emphasis on near transfer trainees, so this is need to follow standardized procedures, process and checklist. So it's really on the utilizing of standard operating procedures in the company and under the organization and what training practices is. So as much as possible, the training should be aligned to the SOPs and to the protocols of the organization to facilitate transfer of training. We have also forward transfer here. It's quite the opposite of near transfer. So forward transfer is involves using learned capabilities of novel situations involving original thinking. So this is utilizing insights, like out of the box experiences of the trainees in dealing with problems in the work. So it's like not literally what they have learned from the training, but from insights and realizations, like they can um, find another solutions, right? So table 5.10 is the content of a sample self-management module. So of course we have here, this is an example. So you can use this in conducting or creating your own training or creating your own management module. So I've shared earlier that the organization plays a crucial role in making the training possible or making the training useful. All right. So in this context, manager here has a very big role. So they are the persons who handle specific people or a team, specific teams. So it's when managers tries to negotiate and try to collaborate and try to make sure that the team or the people he or she is handling is really working and really applying as well the learned things that they have learned in the training. And the manager here should be the point focal person, right? Because he or she is the one who manages the team, and of course, the manager should coordinate with the trainers and vice versa to ensure that there is really transfer of training. And one way of doing that is one use of action plan. So this is planned activities that is intended um, to be given to the workers or to the trainees that has specific task responsibilities. It is also time bounded, it is measurable, and of course, are realistic. So it is guided also by a matrix. So I'll be showing you, be sending you in your emails, of course, in Canva sample of action plan. And I'm sure in your other subjects, you have done this as well. So this is table 5.5 levels of management support for training, right? So high support and we have low support, right? So level, it has several levels. So we have teaching program, practice skills, reinforcement, participation, encouragement, and acceptance, right? So the more it's individualistic, like the more it's more on relying on the individual pacing. Like for example, acceptance. Acceptance here is most likely the trainees are the one who will be accepting themselves, so there is no involvement with other people. So it really somewhat needs it needs low support as compared to teaching and program where it needs collaboration with the trainers, with the managers, and etc. So it needs also high support from other people. Table 5.11 is a checklist for determining a manager's level of support for training. So when you do your training in the real world, so perhaps to be um, talking or negotiating or collaborating with managers, you can use this checklist, right? So we have also peer support. In peer support are crucial, also important. They're also important as managers and to the trainers and trainees in delivering the effective training because it would be very um, the experience of training will be very different if you have peers who whom you are sharing with the same path or direction, right? So several trainees undergoing the training and of course they share the similar experiences, same situations of attending the lectures, discussions, right? So they can turn to each other, especially if they will be having difficult and challenging times. So since they're on the same level in terms of trainees and they share the same experiences, then they can be an ally or a support to each other. Uh, So we have here now opportunity to use learned capabilities. So when participants or trainees have um, the internal motive or the internal capacity to learn certain things or certain tasks, it will also yield several advantages to the training. So for example, it would give trainers like a heads up, like this particular set of trainees has already been exposed to this type of knowledge or skills. So it would give the trainer like an advantage. And same with trainees. So this is really important. This is where phase one or pre-training is very important and crucial because this is also the time wherein the trainers have the capacity or the opportunity to gauge the level of knowledge of the trainees. So it will be very challenging, or it will be difficult to for trainers to conduct training wherein the trainees have already this specific knowledge and skills. So it will be there will be a redundancy, and most likely training will not be effective, participants will be bored, and they will not be more engaged in the training, right? And we have here technological support when we do training. So I'm not sure if this is common here in the Philippines, but I think this is more common in the US. So they have electronic performance support system. So it is a computer application that provides skills training, information access, and expert advice. I'm not sure if it's utilized here in the Philippines, but please let me know your answers, or if you have any knowledge to an existing EPSS here in the Philippines, please let me know your answer by the comment section below, so that you can also share your your knowledge to the other YouTubers or to our other watchers here in our channel. Here we will talk now about knowledge management. So this is um also connected to our previous discussion last week, which was about on learning. So knowledge management is the process designing and implementing tools, processes, structures, and cultures. And the purpose here is to improve the creation, sharing, and use of knowledge among the trainees, right? So, how can we optimize the learning of the trainees in the training itself, right? So we know the physical setup, the the instruction part, the different contents, the different um, paperworks. So right now, how can we make sure that we can optimize the learning experience in the training itself? So we'll start with, of course, we will be using technology, because technology would really help us an advantage. So what we're doing right now, I'm harnessing um, the power of technology in delivering this lecture to everyone, right? Publishing directories. We have also developing informational maps, and of course, creating chief information officer, as this is now on more on the organizational aspect, right? So we have also giving presentations about learning from training programs attended, so taking time off from work to acquire knowledge, study, and problems and attend trainings, creating online learning resources, facilitating interactions between employees, and creating communities in practice and use after action review. So, in a nutshell, so it has a lot of um, strategies, a lot of um, actions. But what is important here is, as trainers, you should know n- your capacity as a trainer, like what is the best option, what's the best method as a trainer you can use, that you are comfortable, that you are expert with, that you can use for your trainees, right? So you cannot use all of those strategies if it's not aligned also with your skills and of course with the capacity of the organization, right? And of course, and here is the keys of effective knowledge management. Course, training information technology collaboration. So, the information technology right now, I mean, what we're using right now, the technology, it's a very big advantage, and at the same time, it also creates a dilemma to the users or to the trainers to what extent are they going to use technology, or how are they prepared in using technology in their training. So yeah, those were the questions that most of us are experiencing, especially right now it's in pandemic and we are using the technology. And of course, next, to have an effective knowledge management is to create leadership positions on knowledge management or chief learning officer. So this is really on the higher level. So if you wanted to have if the organization has the resources, If they wanted to be very serious with training, then perhaps they can um, recruit and hire talents who can be the chief learning officers and knowledge officers. So they are the ones who um, initiate leaders of companies' knowledge management efforts, develop and link learning culture with the company's technology infrastructure, locate knowledge and find ways to create, capture, and distribute it within the organization. So yeah. So in a nutshell, the topic for this lecture series really relies on creating your design program. So what we did right now is just I give you an overview. So on our separate lecture or group um, collaboration or group consultations, we'll be talking on how to create your own program design, module, curriculum, and all of those admin works and paperworks, right? So that'll be all for now for our program design lecture for chapter 5. And if you have questions, please let me know your questions at the comment section below, or you can message or you can email me my email, and of course connect to my social media accounts. It's available on my YouTube channel as well. The links are there. So yeah, that will be all for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you've learned something from our lecture for program design. So thank you so much for listening. Have a great day and stay safe always. Goodbye for now.